Welcome to another episode of the Rugby Coffee Podcast, hosted by myself, Corneille Durant, founder of Rugby Coffee out of Twickenham, alongside with partner Tines Pinar in Canada. Hi, Tines.
Good morning. Good morning, Corneille. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Morning for you, afternoon, evening here where I am. But as always, people, this is an unedited podcast. We don't add, we don't take away anything. Just a bit about Rugby Coffee for those who don't know much about us. We are a startup company selling gourmet coffee to mainly the rugby and sports markets and community, with the goal to expand globally. And we believe that rugby and coffee brings people together, and together we can make a difference. The aim with the business is to create a fantastic brand, but also to make a difference by supporting partner charities, especially those who work with kids, uplifting their lives and in communities. Using rugby and sport as a tool to help those communities, those kids, especially where there's a real need. So we are really glad you guys are with us on this podcast. We'd like to invite you just to join our journey, buy the coffee, and help make a difference. But today, let's get to our guest for today. Born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in the middle of Canada, capped 43 times for his country, with a professional rugby career spanning over 15 years, ran out about over 250 times as a professional in a club level in France from 2003-4 onwards. But before that, Landoverian Ireland in 2002, but mainly in France. A legendary status around the world, especially France and Canada, of course. Lockford and Hardman, Jamie Cudmore. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you very much, Corny. Denius, happy to be aboard.
Morning, Jamie. Great, man.
Now it's morning over your side, Jamie. You said you in Victoria, when we spoke a bit earlier, you said it's a bit cold, but cold for you guys in Victoria as opposed to the guys the other side in Canada is a bit different. What's cold over there?
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. Tennis being out east in Ontario, it's a little different. You know, when it gets under -1, -2 here, that's a spring day in Ontario. So for the rest of the country, they'd be having a laugh at us. But no, it is gotten about -5, -6 the last couple of days, and there's a bit of snow on the ground, which to me is par for the course for winter in Canada. But a lot of people struggle with that here on the West Coast, as they're used to either a lot of rain or a bit of sun. So we're doing all right, but it is a little complicated on the roads in the morning.
Well, thanks for joining us, and just give us an idea where you're at. Where in Victoria?
So I live near our training center in Bear Mountain, which is just kind of in the northwest side of Victoria. In a little town called Langford, which is kind of an agglomeration of Victoria. It's a great little spot on the West Coast, as it's very sport orientated. We've got many different national sports organizations that are based out of here, and a lot of different training centers. We've got, obviously, Rugby Canada's Centre of Excellence, the Al Sharon Centre, where we have our men's academy, women's sevens academy, women's and men's Olympic programs based out of this building. And then also any senior women's or senior men's 15s when they're in training camp, they will be based out of here, as we have our our high performance training center with West Hill Stadium right across the street. So we're basically a one-stop shop for any Canadian rugby player wanting to progress and to build and to attain the goals that them and their teams have set forth.
Sounds really good, a really amazing center. So while you're on that topic, what's your role with Rugby Canada?
So my role that I took on a year and a half ago after coaching professionally in France was to restart the Canadian Development Academy, known as the Pacific Pride. Pacific Pride was an entity that was put together back in 1995 and ran to about 2004, 2005. Through that time, had about 1,000 caps were produced through that program. A lot of professional contracts. You got guys like Morgan Williams, Danny Baugh, John Tate. Some great professionals came through there. I myself went through the program in 1999, and it's a great vehicle for Canadian rugby players to go through our very well established age grade program, but then kind of get to that 18 to 23 age group where there's nowhere really to go for them to continue their high performance rugby aspirations. So we, in partnership with Rugby Canada in 2019, we had a few meetings with obviously our board and some senior members of Rugby Canada, and we have a group called the Guardians of the Jersey, which are ex-captains of Canada through many different eras. And we looked at the state of our national team and why it was doing so badly over the last 10, 15 years. And the main point that came out of these talks was we're severely under-resourced in terms of players that are prepared to play at the international level. We had a lot of great athletes, maybe even some who got to a certain age where maybe they should have been, moving on, myself included. But unfortunately, there was nobody coming through the pipeline to kind of push those established professionals or international players on, and it kind of created a bit of complacency, and it created some real headaches for the coaching staffs that were in place over the last kind of era. As you get a couple injuries, it's a big change for any international team, but we had nobody really to call on. We probably did have people to call on, but unfortunately they weren't prepared to play a full 80 or, really compete at the international level. So this is why we got the Pride back online. And I'm extremely excited that it is back up and going. The proof is here that I'll speak about in a minute. The fact that we've got some great athletes who have come through our age grade programs and are now in a professional environment here day to day, and we're playing games, we're playing inter-squad games, we're in full contact as we have a high performance designation through Via Sport. We're business as usual since September. So it's we're in a very, very fortunate space. And as you talked about, helping kids and get things, moving forward, we've got good athletes that come from many different sides of the country. And even we've got a few kids that have come in from Africa and from Europe, and we're building, player resources for the national team. So that's my day to day. I run the academy. Over the last year and a half, we've had 17 guys graduate onto MLR contracts. We've had 2 go over to Europe into academy contracts. So the proof is there that we have the athletes and we have kids that are, they're pushing for international selection, hopefully this summer. And it's great to be in this space where, sure, it's going to take a few years for it to really start to show at the national level. But in terms of, over-resourcing the national program, which is what we really want to do, and have the coaches, myself, Kingsley, Rob Howley, have some real headaches when it does come time to select a squad for the games coming up. So that's my day-to-day with the academy, coaching here with Phil Mack, ex-Canadian international, ex-coach obviously in the MLR with the Seattle Seawolves, winning 2 championships. So that we've got a great coaching staff here, great S&C. We're as a professional entity anywhere in the world, basically. With 2 coaches, S&C, full weight room, and doctors and physios, as you would expect. And we're pretty excited as to what we're building here, and what we can build for the future. And then when we get into test windows, I coach the forwards for our national team with, as I said earlier, Kingsley Jones as the head coach, and Rob Howley is our attack coach.
Jamie, that sounds fantastic. We were going to ask you about how the program runs, etc., and you've explained it there. And it seems like the vehicle is in place to drive this forward, and it's exciting times for Canadian rugby. How's the Olympic preparations going?
Well, Olympic preparation for the men and women is difficult. The men have only just come back into their daily training environment after the majority of them opting out before Christmas, because honestly there was so many questions before Christmas as to when are the Olympics going to go off? When's the best time to start training? So it's very, very difficult for the coaching staff and the squad to really have any certainty as to what they're building towards. Clearly, they're building towards the Olympics, but what type of training are they going to be able to do outside of this environment? Because this environment is perfect for them to build and to be prepared. But as we all know, they're going to need games before the Olympics to be properly prepared. Where that's going to happen and when, well, with COVID, nobody really knows. There's about 5 or 6 plans put down on pencil, but as we know, it's things can change quite quickly. And then the women's program are training as well. They've had a bit of an issue lately with coaching changes, but that's a process that they're going through, and it's not something that I can speak on.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a difficult time for any team. I read in the news today that some teams can't make it out to Sevens tournament in Madrid, which a number of international teams are going to. But yeah, difficult times in regards to COVID. But let's take it back to you and Jamie Cudmore. Family, Jamie. We know about Jennifer.
Yep.
Jennifer, you guys are what we call a rugby couple. And then you've got kids. Can you tell us a little bit about Jennifer and your kids and what they're up to and how you've been doing since you've been back from France?
Yeah, so obviously I met Jennifer back in 2008 in Canada at a rugby game, funnily enough. And she was moving to France to do her MBA in Grenoble and then on into to Oxford. Our relationship started then and went from strength to strength and until we started living together and got married when I was playing in Clermont. As things go, a few years later we had 2 children, my daughter Maëlle, and then my son Grayson was born a couple years after. And really enjoyed the French lifestyle of growing up with kids there, as families obviously very important in the French lifestyle. Really enjoyed ourselves, as a family. And then with Jennifer building different businesses, as my wife's been in business for about longer than I've been playing rugby, she knows exactly what she's doing when she's when she's building things such as, we've had a nightclub, a sports bar, we've had a wine bar, we've had two different wine labels while we were in France. And then after my concussion issues in 2015, we started a foundation called the Rugby Safety Network, based out of Geneva in Switzerland, in partnerships with a company called Neurovision that do neurological ophthalmologic brain training. So that was really good, especially for me at that time in terms of helping some of my concussion recovery plans. And then, moving back to Canada, my wife continued on with a few of her businesses that she started up with some resale stuff, and she's very big into disruptive technology. So she's has started a cryptocurrency consultancy, and that's her day to day. And then we continually build on other different options when that come about. Moving back to Canada, she's continued on with that, and continues on with the resale, the business that she has. And it's quite funny because a lot of it I don't really understand, but she's much more successful than I am. So if she talks, I listen. But
well, this is why there's couples. Successful couples bring different things to it, doesn't it? And you guys back in Canada now. How has that been for the kids and for yourselves?
It's been a great change. Moving back, it was funny. We actually we took a boat back from Europe, just like back in the 1700s. We got on a cruise ship from Rotterdam and came over the North Atlantic and got off in St. John's. The boat was going down to Boston, but last year with the regime in place, there was no way we're going to the States. So we hopped off in St. John's, where my wife's actually from, and we got off the boat. No passport control, no nothing. Just hopped off the boat, bags in the back of the old man's truck, and off we went. So that's how we got home to Canada. It was funny because it was actually cheaper to take the boat than it was to take the plane.
Wow.
Yeah, so we got home like that, and it was an amazing experience because we went over the North Atlantic. So we went up to Shetland Islands, around Iceland, stopped in Iceland, a bunch of different places, went up to Greenland, stopped in Greenland, and then steamed south to St. John's, and then we hopped off the boat. So that's how we got back.
Wow, how long did that trip take you?
The whole trip, I think, was 17 days, but we got off on the 13th day.
Okay.
John's. It was quite funny.
Amazing.
We got to the bottom of the boat, and anytime you get off the boat, you have these cards where you have to kind of swipe in so that they know they can keep a tab on everybody. And we got to the bottom of the boat. We had all our bags and everything, and we've been traveling. And
nice.
Boat worker guy, he looks and he goes, "Why you got all your bags? We're only here for 6 hours." I said, "No, it's okay. We're getting off." And he said, he looks outside and it's kind of gray, rainy day, and we're down on the port in St. John's, which is it's an industrial area just on that section. And he kind of looks up. He goes, "Why you want to stay here?" And we're like, "Oh, buddy, this is home. This is home. We're getting off the boat." he goes, "Okay." And he took our cards, and we walked down the gangway and around the corner and onto the street, and bags in the back, and off we went. And I didn't really think about it at first, but because we're Canadian, we got our passports and everything. But I thought, man, it's funny. There was no passport control or customs or anything. But anyway, we're back. So I'm not hiding. So
no, you certainly came back, and it's a great way to come back. Fantastic. Look, I'll hand over to Tinus now to talk a bit more about rugby and your career.
Yeah, brilliant, man. Thanks, Corne, and thanks for that, Jamie. What a pleasure to have you on the show, Corne, as the captain and the founder. He always gives me clear guidelines about how long we can be busy and how long it's going to be. But I want to chat a bit of ball, as this is a game of a show for rugby, a show for coffee, but we want to ask you, where did your love for this game start? You know, you've had such an illustrious career and it's taken you many places, as we've just heard. But at what age did it for you start and where?
Well, rugby for me started quite late. I'm obviously don't come from a traditional rugby area. The small town that I grew up in, Squamish, not far from here, there was no real established rugby as a child. I always knew about rugby because my father actually emigrated to Canada back in the early 70s, and he played rugby. He played rugby, at a kind of a county level in the south of England, playing for, I think he played for Sussex, if that makes sense. And then he played, my father's a physician, so he played through medical school. He played at Cambridge as well when he was doing his medical school stuff there. So I always knew about rugby, and he always talked about, his boys playing rugby, and he had the Five Nations videos on VHS that he used to, make us watch. And so we knew about it, but unfortunately, there was no rugby in Squamish growing up. So we did a lot of the other traditional sports there back in the 80s. My brothers played hockey. I tried a bit of hockey, but my dad was a big skier. So he used to take us skiing quite a bit. And then I did, ski club in our high schools. So the high school would take you up to skiing a few days a week, which is pretty cool to be able to do that. I don't think they do that now anymore because it's unfortunately a bit too pricey up in Whistler. But that's kind of how things as like 10, 12-year-old kind of started with rugby. My dad always had those videos. And then later on, I started working, at kind of 14, 15 years old. I wasn't too interested in high school at those days. A lot of my buddies were working in the bush. So they said, hey, come on up, work in the bush, and you get paid good money, and it's pretty fun running around in the woods all day. So I thought, all right, let's give it a go. And I'd done a few jobs over the winter, did some gas fitting, did some, propane delivery, humping 100 kilo canisters up and down construction sites. And, that wasn't really for me, but I started getting into some more logging work in the summers. And at one time, the boss that I was working for, it was the president of the local club, the Squamish Axemen. And Greg Richmond's his name. He's an absolute legend out here on the West Coast in logging and in rugby. And he said, "Listen, if you guys don't want to work on Saturdays, you and your line mate, you guys can come out and play some rugby." And my buddy Dave, he's like, "Rugby, man, that's crazy. Those guys are crazy. They got no pads, this, that, and the other." And I said, "No, Dave, it's okay. My dad, I've watched the rugby. It looks like a lot of fun." And so that's kind of how it all started. We got off work Saturday down to the school right off the highway in Squamish there, and everybody's changing off the back of their pickup trucks, and guys got a dart in their mouth and they're running on the field, kind of throw it off to the side as they run on the field. So that was kind of the warm up that we got. And then, the first scrum, probably the third, fourth scrum in the game, the boys were puking up what they had the night before and this, that, and the other. So it was pretty rough, quite social rugby. Yeah. But I was hooked. Because, anytime you smack somebody or you got going forward, everybody would slap you on the back and they'd be quite excited. So I thought, man, this is it for me. So it kind of went from there where, really enjoyed the game, loved that camaraderie, loved the fact that it was like uncompromising game where, anything you did to help your team move forward, that was celebrated. So I took to it very, very easily.
That's brilliant. I love that. No, mate, other sports you covered, because I sent you and we looked at your schooling career and background, but that's a whole process that started right there with the Axemen and on the weekend and everything. And you say it very humbly, but it led to an illustrious Canadian rugby career and abroad. But your journey into that Canadian rugby squad, I'm always interested to hear what it took and how quickly it took some people. I was fortunate back in South Africa to be a housemate, and one of my best friends was Donnie van Schalkwyk, the Springbok centre, Blue Bulls legend and Springbok centre. But he virtually, within a space of 6 months of making a provincial squad, made it into a Springbok team. And it was always interesting to hear that time it took before you were in Rugby Canada in the red jersey on the international stage. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so that first year I played a bit with Squamish. I was still, there was a few issues around me basically being a shithead when I was a kid, late teens, getting in a bit of trouble and this, that, and the other. And I still hadn't quite found my way as to what exactly I wanted to do. The walls were definitely closing in on me in Squamish, so I had to get out of there basically. So I moved down to North Vancouver, and I joined the Capellanos club on the North Shore. That's my club till the end of days, with Squamish obviously. But I basically walked into the field, and there was a whole bunch of people that were very similar to me, similar age, similar, kind of background, and a lot of kind of guys that were working and stuff. So I felt like at home already, and it was a better standard of rugby and a lot more people playing. So I played a year there with the Capellanos, and halfway through the year, I had an opportunity through a good friend of mine, Bob Bremner, who had just come back from New Zealand, and he said, "Listen, you look like you've got some potential here. You should go down to New Zealand this summer and try to progress your game." I said, "Yeah, okay, all right, why not? Like, sounds fun." So he set me up with a friend of his, Bruce Wigglesworth, and the East Coast Bays Rugby Club in the North Shore of Auckland. I went down. A couple of weeks later, I sold everything I had. The club gave me $1,000 and towards my plane ticket. Anyway, I sold everything I had, TV, truck, and all that, and I went on down to New Zealand with a bag over my shoulder and not really knowing what was going to happen. Anyway, I showed up at 6:00 in the morning in Auckland Airport. No bags, no nothing. My bags got lost somewhere. Anyway, I got picked up by Bruce, and he goes, "Oh, how you feeling?" I said, "Oh, yeah, not too bad." He goes, "Oh, let's go for breakfast." I go, "Yeah, that'd be great, but I'd like to maybe stop and just buy like some underwear and a toothbrush or something. I got no clothes." He goes, "Don't worry about that. We're going to go play rugby." I said, "Oh, sounds good." So I got off the plane that morning. I went and had breakfast, and that afternoon, one of the boys lent me a pair of boots, and I played rugby the same afternoon. So
wow.
That's how it started down in New Zealand, and I really, really enjoyed that. Working in the week, pouring concrete on Saturday mornings, playing rugby the Saturday afternoons, and just enjoying the whole immersion into the New Zealand culture. It's very, very similar to our culture here on the west coast of Canada. A lot of similarities between the Maori culture and our Coast Salish peoples. Definitely the Squamish Nation where I grew up. I got a lot of friends, Indigenous persons in Squamish, and a lot of the mannerisms and the way people interact is very, very similar. So I felt like home. I felt like I was at home, and it was really, really great. And that's kind of how I kind of like supercharged my rugby IQ, my understanding of the game in that year, and I even got selected to Harbour under 21s. So I was pretty excited about how quickly I'd kind of caught on and how things were developing. I kept getting these opportunities left, right, and center. And at the same time, I got that call up to Harbour under 21s. I had one of our club captains at Capellanos, Julio Dakotas, who's a great friend of ours with his brothers, and their family's been huge supporters of rugby in Canada, and definitely of my program. And Julio, he's a man of a few words. And Julio called me. He said, "Cudmore, you get back. You're going into the Pacific Pride. I'll see you next week." And I said, okay, Julio, I'll see you next week. So the next week I was on a plane and I came back up to Canada and I was out. I went out here to Victoria and I was a member of the Civic Pride Academy, which I now coach. So it was pretty cool how things went from year to year to year, bang 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 bang. I had a great year with the Pride. Again, learning a whole bunch, playing with some great guys. And we went on our end of year tour to Germany. Had a great tour. Ended up beating the German national team in the final game before we came home. And on the flight home, a friend of mine, Colin Ukes, and I were kind of chatting, like, "Hey, Colin, what are you doing this summer?" He goes, "I don't know. Me neither. We got nothing to do." So we said, "Oh, it'd be really fun. We're going to hitchhike across Canada. We're going to start when we get out of the airport in Vancouver. We're going to go watch the Premiership final in Vancouver, and then from then on, we'll just hitchhike east." The great thing about rugby in Canada is, yes, it's a big country, but every stop of the way, we knew somebody involved in rugby, and we knew there'd be an open door or a meal or whatever you needed through that great rugby community. So off we went. So we went from the airport, went to the Thunderbird Stadium in UBC where the finals were being held, and watched the game, had a couple of beers, had a good laugh, said goodbye to everybody, and put our bags on our backs, and off we went, walking out of the stadium. And as we were walking out of the stadium, we ran into David Clark, who was the then national team coach, and he was also our coach with the academy. And I remember Clarky, he just goes, "Colin, Jamie, look at me now." "Hi, Clarky. Yeah, okay. You coming with me to Australia next week?" And we kind of looked at each other like, "What?" So that was our call up.
Wow.
to an Aussie tour with Canada, and off we went. And that's kind of where like my whole Canadian career started. Those games weren't capped games; it was kind of like an A development tour. But we were in the setup, and after that, coming home from that tour, which was a real eye opener for me in terms of where I needed to be in terms of game IQ, fitness, and just getting bigger and stronger. Because at that time I was only 22. I know I needed to get a bit of an edge.
Yeah.
So off of that tour, I had a good couple of weeks working as hard as I could. A lot of weight training, good eating, and training properly. And then that got me a call up to the national team with some games against the Americans down in the States. And that's where I got my first cap in 2002 against the United States in Chicago. And I was very fortunate to have replaced Canadian rugby legend Al Sharon in the second row in that game. And I came on and they had pretty much done all the work. The game was over by the time I came on. But I got my first cap, and that's from then on. That's when it kind of started opening up opportunities in Europe, where a guy named Pat Dunkley, who was Canadian international at the time, our hooker, was playing in Wales, and he said, "Listen, they're looking for internationals, second rows and front rows." And I said, "Well, yeah. Sure. What's the deal?" They said, "Well, come on over, and they'll pay for your flight. They'll give you $1,000 a month, a free car, and a house, and all that." I said, "Jesus, they're going to pay me to play rugby?" Up and before this, I never really understood the whole professional side of the game. One, growing up in Squamish, I didn't know that it was possible to play professionally, and then as I kind of went through the different levels of rugby that I was playing, I started to see like, oh, geez, okay, yeah, these guys they're doing this full time. And that really interests me. So the fact that I had this opportunity to go to Wales and play for Llanelli, a storied club with, X number of internationals and, a huge amount of history. That was, for me, it was just like, a step up, a step up, a step up every year. Whereas to this one this was more than a step up. This was probably 3 or 4 steps up. So, it was great. It just went from strength to strength. And I still remember walking into the change room the first time, and I'm looking around the room, and, you've got basically the whole Welsh squad, a couple choice internationals, the Easterby brothers. You got Scott Quinnell, Stephen Jones, Lee Davies, John Davies. You got all these British and Irish Lions. You've got Welsh guys, Tongans, Irish squad members, and I'm kind of thinking like, geez, a couple years ago, I was playing social rugby in Squamish. And all of a sudden I'm here and I'm getting paid, and I thought, this is amazing. So that's where the kind of the whole professionalism really started. Learning how to train as a professional was definitely done when I was involved in the academy here with Mr. Clark and John McMillan. And after that, I had a good base from that to crack on in professional rugby and really give a go. So that was so that summer I got capped. That year I played for Llanelli, and then the next year I was brought into the Canadian World Cup squad for my first World Cup in 2003. And from that I was offered a job in Grenoble after the World Cup in 2003, and not really knowing where Grenoble was. I knew it was in France. I knew it was in the mountains. I thought, that sounds like something for me. I like the mountains. Yeah. And they're going to pay me to play rugby. So I said, all right, let's do it. And that's how the whole kind of the French side of my life started.
Love that, mate. Thanks for that. What a great journey. I wanted to actually pass the ball over here, because this is where my mind goes haywire, and I want to ask you 15 different questions, but we've got to stick to our time as well, and I'm going to pass the ball back to my teammate, Corne.
All right.
Well, Jamie, no, that's an amazing story you had of your career up to that stage, and got to France. Obviously, I think I thought you were in Ireland for some reason, but you were in Wales actually before you went across to France. So, starting out in France, what was the first thing that sort of got you? This is where I'm going to stay, or this is a place I can play my rugby at, and you ended up playing in France for many years. So, just tell us what it is about the French environment that sort of kept you there.
Well, it was definitely very difficult at the beginning, as I'm sure a lot of people can attest to. Obviously a new language. I come from the West Coast of Canada, so we don't speak French very much. I didn't pay any attention in school, as I said earlier. I definitely wish I had have paid attention, because that first taxi ride when I showed up at the airport in Lyon, and the taxi took me down to Grenoble, which is about a 45-hour drive. And this guy's firing off in French, and I have no idea what he's talking about. So, the first, to be honest, the first 3-4 months was very, very difficult. At that era in French rugby, there wasn't that much support for any foreigners coming into the club. It was basically, you got to figure it out on your own. And if you don't like it, too bad, you can F off. So, nowadays you've got, dedicated people in the club that help the foreign families, get properly integrated, get their health stuff sorted out, get, their housing and how to pay bills and all that. Right. But, at that time, that club didn't have that. To be fair, their manager, Willie Taufifinua, who's the father to some great rugby players already, his son being in the second row of the French team now. He was a huge help for me at that time. Spoke a bit of English and really helped me set things up as best as possible. But like I said, from the taxi from Lyon down to the apartment hotel that I was in for a few months, And then, getting picked up every day by a taxi to get out to training and this, that, and the other. It's difficult. It's difficult, when you can't communicate, you don't know where you are. And I didn't even know how to phone home, to be honest. I didn't know there was country codes or anything like that. And, early 2000s, the internet wasn't as developed as it is now. Nobody had smartphones or anything like that. But, it was hard, but I talked with my mother quite a bit about it, and she said, "Listen, when you have an opportunity to go overseas and go do something that's kind of outside the normal, when people ask you, if you want to go somewhere, you want to experience something," she's like, "Just say yes, because you don't know what'll happen. It's going to open up an opportunity." So I said, "You know what? I'll give it another year." So I gave it another year. Then the following year, Dean Richards came in as our director of rugby. Dean named me captain, so things were going really, really well with that. But unfortunately, there was some difficulties within the squad, and it was back and forth. I had difficulties in the squad trying to lead guys who I didn't really have a proper grasp of the language quite yet. There was a staunch group of not wanting to speak English, another staunch group of not really wanting to speak French, and then kind of myself and a few other guys in the middle trying to hold it all together. And as you guys know, if you don't have everybody pulling in the same direction, it makes it very, very difficult to be successful on the field. And then on top of that, there was some dodgy things happening at the presidential level in terms of grabbing money from here and paying over there, things didn't seem very stable. So at that time I was looking around to try to find a club with a bit more long-term plan, stability, and I was looking in England and I was looking in France. After that process started, I had some good chats with Richard Cockrell at Leicester. In those days, 2004, 2005, Leicester was very strong. They were doing very well. And I had also had a conversation with Clermont Auvergne, so ASM. I was kind of in between two chairs. I talked with Richard. I talked with John Mark and Neil, the managers and general managers at Clermont. And I was kind of, I was humming and hawing. And I guess it boiled down to a conversation I had with Richard and a conversation I had with my parents about, I hadn't really given France a chance. I didn't have a mastery of the language. At that time, it was about 2 years in. I was really starting to enjoy the lifestyle. The fact that, family and food is very important. And there's good kind of there's good protocols around all that.
Yeah.
When everybody sits down for a meal, everybody has a drink, and whether it's water or wine, it doesn't matter. But everybody sits down, has a drink, or you're at the bar and you have a drink, and everybody's chatting, catching up, and then you go to the table, and then there's layers to all of it, and I really enjoyed that. And as I said, I didn't think I'd given France a chance. And Richard, to be fair, at the time when we were talking, he had played it at Clermont, and he said, "Listen, man, if I were you, I'd probably stay in France because I think you're going to have an amazing career." And here I think he was honestly looking for somebody maybe a little bit more experienced than I was at the time. And I really enjoyed his honesty and his frankness around that decision. And so I ended up signing with Clermont, and then that's kind of where things really started getting moving, because that first year with Clermont, we had a bit of a disappointing year as we had an amazing squad, but probably just not enough structure and accountability in the group. Whereas, the year after, when Vern Cotter arrived, it was like night and day. It was roll up your sleeves and get to work, boys, because we're going to outwork everybody. And that's what we did for basically the 10 years after that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. You that was the start of a real successful team. In 2000, I think it was 2009 or 10, you guys got to the final, Clermont's first national final in the top 14. Is that correct?
That's correct. So when Vern arrived, 06-07, we had a great first year where we won the Amlin Cup, so like the Challenge European Cup against Bath, and then we're in the finals against Stade Francais. Unfortunately, we lost that one on a nail biter. I think in the last 3 minutes of the game. And then the following year, in the final again, losing against Toulouse, and then the following year in the final again, losing against Clermont. But it shows the sign of the work ethic and the sheer indignation in that group to be in the final every year. And there's a lot of talk about this malediction that they were never going to win the final or this, that, and the other. But, for you guys and the people listening that have been at rugby at any level, when you're in a final, you don't merit anything. You have to actually rip the trophy out of the other team's hands. It's the only way to do it. It doesn't matter what you did before. It doesn't matter what you're doing tomorrow. It matters that moment, and it's every single moment in that game that matters, and you have to win every single one of them.
That's it.
And we finally did that in 2010. And I'll tell you, boys, you've never seen a party like that. It was ridiculous. The town shut down for about a week. When we came down on the train the following day, they couldn't let us out in town because there was like 25,000 people around the train station. They couldn't get anybody in or out of there. Wow. So they had to let us out like 2 kilometers out of town onto this little platform. And even there was about 1,000 people around the bus. Then they got us into the stadium. We got on an open top bus from the stadium. And then we basically walked the bus from the stadium into the center of town with a rope of police around us. So like you got like 20 cops around the bus with a rope hanging onto a rope. So they kind of created a bit of a cordon so that people couldn't get, trampled onto the bus. Wow. And just kind of crawled into town. And once we got into town, I'd say there's probably 120,000 people in the center of Place. And everybody started jumping. And they recorded a seismic event in Clermont because all these people jumping up and down. Unbelievable. It was like it's a volcanic region in Auvergne. And, man, it was like a volcano had exploded because these people have been waiting for 100 years. That was the 100th year of existence of the club. And they'd never won a final, and we finally did it. And man, it's something I'll never forget.
So special.
That must be one of the biggest highlights, apart from now Canada running out in the World Cup or playing in the Test. But that must have been one of the biggest rugby highlights. Definitely.
You hit the nail on the head. My first cap with Canada gives me goosebumps just thinking about it here now. And then it's the same with our final in 2010. It's pretty amazing to be able to be the first group to have done something. And we still got a WhatsApp group that we're called the Premier. So like the first ones to do it. So it's really, really special.
And you guys went on and you continued on a high level with that club. And you guys, obviously, everybody was trying to beat Clermont in the European Cup. That was the game that everybody was looking forward to on a weekend. What was the biggest thing that you got out of that period of your life in France, especially with a club like Clermont? What was the biggest thing you took away from it?
That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about what I've taken away from it. I think just being in a high performance sports environment like such as that, with so many great players, being able to share those experiences with them and learn off everybody. The different coaches that I was involved with. You got Joe Smith, Frank Azima, Vern Cotter obviously was kind of the spearhead of all that. Some of the S&C coaches we had that were always trying to find new ways to do things. And then some of the amazing players that were around me, that I was able to learn off of, guys, you guys know John Smith played 2 years with John Smith, and obviously a World Rugby legend. Many other guys that came through the club that added their piece, and it was I think it was just that experience of gleaning little tidbits off of everybody creates kind of what you become as a rugby player, and what you can try to get to. And it's true that and during that period where we were kind of walking on the roof of Europe, where we're involved in top 14 finals every year, we're involved in semifinals or finals of European Cup every year. It was quite a grind in terms of the toll that it took on my body, but it was an amazing experience to be involved in things at that high level.
Yeah,
very, very special.
No, I can imagine a lot of what you've learned and a lot of what you picked up, you would be able to now use in this environment that you're now in, and that's great for Canada for sure. And people going away and then able to bring that back. Now, but you ended your career at Ajax, and then was it 2017 your last year there?
Yeah, so I towards the end of my career in Clermont, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. Talked about it with the wife. Should we just continue on through business? Do we want to stay in rugby? And my wife does her own thing. So she said, "Listen, if you still want to play, let's do it." But she was always pushing for me to retire. Even back in 2009, 2010, because as any wife, they don't want to see their husband get hurt. But I said, "Oh, don't worry about that, honey. I'm never going to get hurt. I give more than I receive." It's a bit of a laugh, but that's my attitude around when I play. You just try to give it all for your team, and I thought I still had a bit more to give, so I was offered a great opportunity in Oyonnax to move east and work with a guy who I actually played with in Grenoble, Johan Autier, who was the director of rugby there at the time, and I was brought over. I was named captain after preseason, and I made some pretty bold predictions in the lead up to the season. We got up in front of everybody in the launch for the season with all the captains up in Paris, and I said we're going to win this at the end of the year, and everybody laughed at me, and I loved it. I'm like, perfect. You guys laugh at me. You don't understand. We're going to win. And we did. So I was very fortunate to have a lot of guys that worked very, very hard around me, because they basically saved my ass. But I might have written a big check, but we cashed it at the end of the year, so I was very very happy with that. At the end of that season, after winning the Pro D2 and winning Ascension up to the top 14, I was a bit too beat up to keep going. I could have kept playing, but I would have played maybe 1-2 games a month. I just couldn't recover. I was 38 years old at the time, and to continue on in a league which is very forwards based. So it's truck it up rugby and good kicking games, which is it doesn't ease you into retirement as I was kind of looking. So I just thought it wouldn't be fair to the club, and wouldn't be fair to myself either, to just kind of punch it in every week. And as part of my contract, how it was structured, I was moving into coaching already. I'd already been coaching for the last 10 years in many different capacities, but most notably with the Espoir team in ASM. Had an amazing amount of great players come through that squad that I was coaching with a guy named Sam Charouk. You look at guys on the French team that came through our squad. You've got Raka, Wesley Fofana. Who else came through there? Geez, I'm probably missing a few. Paul Jedraziak, who's played second row for the French team, and now with Clermont, the Lanyon twins. had them in the cadets. So we won 3 French championships as espoir teams. So I was pretty well versed in the French coaching system at that time, and moved from captaining Oyonnax that year, and then moved into a role as a forwards coach with Oyonnax in the top 14 that following year.
Jamie, you just congratulations first of all,
big time,
on your career, lasting that long as well. I know at the end there was some issues with the body, obviously, but also on your four World Cups. And I know they're all, DTH said to us, they're all different. But is there any World Cup that stands out for you as your favorite one?
I'd probably say the 2011 World Cup in New Zealand. That one for me was pretty special. Going back to New Zealand since that was the first time I'd gone back to New Zealand. Since I'd played there. So catching up with a lot of great friends. My wife and daughter were able to come down with us. It was a pretty crazy start to that, where we were based out on the West Coast here in Canada, and then flew from Vancouver down to Auckland, and then my wife and daughter went the other way. They went back to Newfoundland and then flew back to France, and then went from France to Dubai to Sydney to Auckland. So my daughter at 2 years old had pretty much gone around the world already. So having my wife and daughter involved with us and following through the World Cup, and catching up with all those great friends that I'd made in the late '90s in New Zealand, and having them involved in that was amazing. And not only that, the World Cup, winning our first game against Tonga, coming pretty close to getting one over France 4 days later. Unfortunately, we just didn't have a deep enough squad to hold them off, and then tying the bloody Japanese again. Tied the Japanese twice in 2 different World Cups. It's a bit frustrating, but it just shows to the tenacity of the Japanese squad, and it was definitely 2011 my highlight of the World Cups.
Amazing. Look, I know we try to stick to a 45 minute. I can see here on the screen it's a 57 minutes. Jamie, I'm sure you got to get on with work. But look, we delighted to have you on our podcast, and we know that you guys are also involved with the agency. Is it Rugby PR?
Yes.
Is that run by Jennifer as well,
yes.
Or is it a group of you guys who run it?
Oh no, my wife runs everything. I do the heavy lifting. It was like when we had our wine label, I'd be going to work with 10, 15 cases in the back of my truck, and after training, I'd be dropping off wine left, right, and center at all the different restaurants in town, and she'd kind of send me texts. All right, this one goes to there. They want one white. But it's the same thing with Rugby PR. She runs that, and we're looking to develop more here in North America. Obviously, with the advent of MLR and a lot more interest in rugby globally and especially in North America. So that's Jennifer's domain.
Okay, now
brilliant.
Obviously that you look after brands there, you partner with brands, and you've got look after players as well through that agency. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we've been helping a lot of the guys who've been going south to MLR, and a few guys just with some advice really for some of the younger guys going over to Europe. Just making sure that they're in good spaces and they're well supported, because I know how difficult it is when you go to a new country, whether you speak the language or not. It's always good to give guys a bit of a heads up on things that might come up, or any kind of pitfalls. The guys in our that work with Rugby PR we don't charge them money at the moment. because it is so new, especially in terms of the MLR. But we create partnerships for long term. We want people to be well supported, and then the financial side will come back later after we've established good working relationships with good people.
Good stuff.
Great. Look, I think we're going to wrap it up, Jamie. We can go for hours, but look, who makes the best coffee in the house?
I'm actually having some right now, and I'd say it's me.
Yeah,
I'm pretty particular about my coffee. I like it strong, and hot and black. So that's in my opinion, milk should never be in coffee. Milk is for babies.
Well,
you learned that in France, didn't you, Jamie?
Oh, I started that one in Canada years ago, but
really?
In France, definitely. There's no milk going in your coffee.
Well, with where we're at with rugby coffee at the moment, Jamie, hopefully we can fill that cup in your hand soon with one of our favorite brews.
I'd love to. I'd love to try your guys' coffee, and I'd be happy to support in any way I can.
Amazing, Jamie. Look, thanks a lot. We enjoyed it. We learned a lot about you. Good luck with the Canadian program. Everything you're doing there. We are excited, especially that there's a team also involved in the MLR. Just excited about it. Not long before the next World Cup in France is on, so hopefully some of those kids come through and make you proud. But yeah, thank you for your time.
Corne, Tinius, thank you very much for your time as well. I really enjoyed the pod. Happy to do it again. I'm sure there's lots more questions, and I can talk all day. Unfortunately, I could probably talk a glass eye to sleep. So we'll try to keep it shorter next time, hey. But boys, Jamie, thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, Jamie, from my side as well. Thank you so much. Thanks for the time, and all the best that side. We'll be in touch, mate.
Excellent. Thank you, boys.